And hello, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of the Zone TV Movie Entertainment with me, your host Jonathan. Once again, bringing you my thoughts and movie review for the brand new MCU film Black Widow, starring Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harper, I believe, and of course Rachel Weisz. So, Black Widow is here. It's about time. No spoilers here, so if you haven't seen Black Widow, I suggest you go check it out. You really don't have to rush and watch this movie, but you know what? It has some moments where it's fun, but there are some stuff in here that I don't like. And, when they first announced the film, I was like, okay, a Black Widow movie. A little bit too late. This movie should have came out like maybe after the first Avenger movie or even the second one. But you know what? We get what we get, especially after the second one, because, when we got the whole, Wanda messing with Black Widow's mind, we got to see the Red Room and, how she became who she was. We always wanted to see that. And we kind of get it here in this film, but not as much. So the story of this film is that Natasha Romanoff is pretty much still on the run. This is pretty much right after Civil War, before the whole breakout and before the whole events of Infinity War. So she's on the run, she just pretty much, is not part of the whole Sokovia thing or betrayed it, because she did sign it. She was on Tony Stark's side at one point. And now that she's on the run, something from her past comes back, pretty much haunts her, and she needs to get back into the game. So what haunts her is the fact that the Red Room is the program that basically made her Black Widow, is basically back up and running again. Now she needs to figure out who's involved, who's running the factory this time around, and pretty much stop it. So she ends up getting the help from Yelena, basically her Florence Pugh, who is her sister, and same training that she got as, in the Red Room. Same training, pretty much, polar opposites in a way, but they're also like sisters. They were pretty much raised together at a certain point. And then, they had two parents. Rachel Weisz was the mother, and of course, David Harper was the father. Red Guardian, that's who he was. He's a super soldier, basically from the Soviet Union. There's not much of a spoiler because you do see him in costume in the trailer. So, there you go. Spoiler for the trailer. Anyway. So, they all get together, and they literally have to stop the Red Room for pretty much coming out and bringing in more Black Widow operatives. And pretty much stop whatever's left of the Black Widow operatives from pretty much taking over the world. And they get the help, the Red Room gets the help from Taskmaster. Now, in the comics, Taskmaster is pretty much an assassin who can mimic the fighting abilities of anybody he can see. And for the most part in this film, you get that sense of it, but it's very, very different. And you know what? A lot of people I've been hearing online saying that he was a waste of a character, and this and that, and maybe the weakest MCU villain. And that's all true. Sure, he was a waste of a villain. I can say that. But, there were moments in his character was useful. I'm not going to spoil about what his character is or why it serves a purpose, but I like the different changes that they made for the character. It's not exactly like the comic books, but we all know in the MCU, none of it is always going to really connect to what the comic books are. So, how do I feel about this film? I like it. I like it, but I don't love this film. I don't think this is the greatest MCU film of all time. When the trailers came out, I was like, alright, this is kind of heavy in the vein that maybe like what Winter Soldier was, a spy thriller film with Natasha Romanoff, because we all love Black Widow, and we love Scarlett Johansson in this role. She makes this character her own, and she does a really good job. And, for the most part, I did like this. I had the whole spy kind of thriller, James Bond type of feel to it. And, we got to see Natasha do some stuff that she's never really done. Trust other people besides the Avengers. Because if you watch the other movies from the MCU, there were times we see Natasha, and she's always been that secure person, to herself. And the only person she ever trusted was always Clint, But when she, kind of bloomed a little bit with the Avengers, she kind of like trusted them like they're her family. And in this movie, she has to trust another family that she kind of had in the background years before she met the Avengers. And she's got to trust them all over again, you know? And you get to see that emotion that she has to deal with. Not only the fact that, yeah, she has blood in her hands, but she can also be a kind, sweet person at the same time. And it really showed here a little bit, you know? And I think it worked. I think it really did work. And, it really showed us, like, yeah, Natasha Romanoff, she may be a badass assassin, but she's also still human, you know? She does have emotions, but she always shows it. And we got to see a little bit of it, and I appreciated that. And also, there are some stuff in here I did not like. And some of the pacing to me was a little bit kind of like, okay, if this was an origin story, I can understand it and maybe I'll give it a pass. But this movie wasn't really an origin story of Black Widow, how she became Black Widow. This was basically a film of her finishing what she pretty much started in the past, and we kind of got a glimpse of it, but they kind of make it look like, let's stretch out the whole thing to really tell her backstory. And it's like, we get who she is, but we just want to see her do her thing. We don't need to see her. If this was a backstory, okay, give us the backstory. But this just shows us, flashbacks, and then they try to stretch it out to make it look like it's a full origin story for her. And it really wasn't. You really watch this film, and it's not really an origin story of her. It's just her finishing what she started years ago, even though we never seen it. Like the stuff with Budapest, like you guys remember the whole thing about Budapest from the Avengers movie? We finally get closure for that, so that was awesome. And, like I said, the pacing was a little bit too long and really a lot of talking. Action scenes were great. I liked all the action scenes in here. Florence Pugh was awesome. I really enjoyed her character. She was funny, heart-witted, badass as well. She was great. I thought she was great. David Harper, he's not in it as much, but he was phenomenal as Red Guardian, and I thought he killed. And Rachel Weisz, look, I love Rachel Weisz. She's great. Bond's wife, obviously. Daniel Craig's wife, but she was okay. I do wish we got more with her because her character was interesting, but there was some stuff she did in the movie was kind of like, okay, so she's doing this, but is she supposed to be this or this? It really was to me it felt confusing, but that's what we get. And let's talk about Taskmaster. Taskmaster was a character that I thought, all right, they're bringing in Taskmaster. He's a badass character. We see him in the game. He's kind of like Marvel's version of Deathstroke. If Deathstroke had a photographic memory of, copying people's fighting styles. I mean, Deathstroke in the DCEU, he's a master tactician when it comes to fighting too, but don't get me wrong. But Taskmaster is a whole different level of that. And, they kind of changed him a little bit, which I didn't mind. It's just that I kind of wish his character was more, significant to the movie. His character was just there. Like, okay, here's Taskmaster. Do your thing. What's the purpose for? Yeah, it gives us a purpose at the end of the film. But it's like, really? They couldn't explain that in the beginning of the film so we understand this character more and understand why he's going after Natasha Romanoff besides the fact that he has to retrieve something that's important. And, yeah, that's basically what he had to do. Taskmaster's objective was to get a certain thing for the bad guys that Natasha had that it would pretty much kind of like end the Red Room. I'm not going to spoil what it actually is, but you'll watch it when you get to it. But still, and then we get a sense of who Taskmaster is at the end of the film, and it's like, well, that's a little bit too late, but what can you do? Not the greatest MCU villain of all time, not, but it was just there. He's just there. Hopefully, maybe in the next film, he can be kind of like a better version. Kind of like how we had a bad version of the Mandarin, and now we're getting a badass version of the Mandarin in the new Shang-Chi film, which I cannot wait for. But kind of like maybe in that vein. Maybe he's terrible here, but maybe in a future film, we'll get him again, and he'll be even more better and badass, like how he's supposed to be, like how in the game he is. But we didn't get that, so what can you do? The other villain in this film was just there. Wasn't really anything too much. The big villain, obviously. But I get his purpose. I get the purpose for the character. But he didn't really kind of like Thanos is all the way up here. Galactus is like all the way up here. this guy was kind of like all the way in the bottom, where all the main villains are stacked up higher. He's like that main Jenga piece that starts the thing. Like, he's so small that you don't even need him. He's that one piece of block that you don't need. But he was just there, so there, that villain. But overall, this film was okay. You know, like I said, I do wish this film came out earlier. If this movie would have came out like maybe after Avengers, Age of Ultron, or even the first Avenger movie, and we got to really know who Black Widow was, this movie would have been better than what we got, because we all know what's going to happen to Natasha Romanoff. We do know she survives this movie. Spoiler alert, I am sorry. And we all do know what happens to her in Endgame. Spoiler alert, she dies. So it's not exactly like, is she going to die in this movie? What's going to happen to her here? No, we know what's going to happen to her. She's going to survive and then eventually die in Endgame. Spoiler for Endgame. But there was no like satisfaction for her. No real threat for her to like, oh, we might actually lose her here, you know? It's not like if this was like a new Iron Man film, like right after he just died and he came back to life and he's continuing his journey. Like, oh, what's he gonna do now that he just came back to life? It's not like it's no real threat. Can he die again? You know, kind of like that kind of thing. But since we know Black Widow doesn't die in this movie until an Endgame, there's really no high stakes in this movie. So, but what can you do? Hey, but I still enjoyed the film. I thought it was fun. Is it worth $30? It's only worth $30 if you don't feel comfortable going back to a theater. That's how I'll explain it. If you feel comfortable that you okay going to a movie theater, vaccinated or not, wear a mask, and that's fine, then go watch it in the theater. If you don't feel comfortable, I just don't recommend spending $30 for this film, because there's some great stuff in here, don't get me wrong, but there's also some stuff in here that's like, okay. I mean, it really doesn't move the story, the MCU forward. One of the MCU films is like, oh, so this is gonna set up this film, or that's gonna set up that film. It doesn't really set up anything. It does in a way, but it sets up movies that we've already seen already, that already happened already in Infinity War and Endgame. So the payoff is just, although the after credit does set up something huge. So stay to the very end if you go to a movie theater. I'm not sure if it's on Disney Plus. Honestly, I don't know if the Disney Plus shows the after credit. I would assume it does, but I'm not really sure. So I didn't watch it on Disney Plus. I went to a movie theater. So, yeah. So if you go to the theater, check it out, the after credit, because that sets up something big for a certain character in the MCU. So there you go. But like I said, I still enjoyed it. There was some stuff I liked. There was some stuff I don't like. I do wish Rachel Weisz was in it a little bit more. Florence Pugh was great. I do wish Taskmaster was a cooler character. But overall, it was just an okay film. Like I said, not the greatest MCU film, but eventually they were gonna have a moment where all the MCUs are in line, in a perfect line, and then one of them was gonna just tilt a little bit. Just tilt. Hasn't fallen off yet completely to fall off the other dominoes, but it's just tilting enough to be like, hey, it was okay, but yeah, you can still bypass it and still continue doing great stuff, It kind of like if you're driving a car and you fall asleep at the wheel and you automatically wake up because you're like, well, you might be going to the other side of the road. Kind of like that. That's what the MCU did with this film. It's like, we're driving, the MCU's doing great, and then Black Widow shows up and like, oh, we forgot. We gotta keep going straight. So that's what it is. But that's just my opinion. If you guys watch this and you think it's awesome, awesome. If you think it's just okay like I do, that's cool too. So, but yeah, we got plenty of Marvel movies coming out soon we cannot all wait for. We got the MCU shows. Loki's almost done. Spider-Man's coming soon. Where the heck is that trailer? Shang-Chi's almost here as well. Thor, Love and Thunder next year. Doctor Strange. We got all those great movies. Fantastic Four. The rest of the MCU Phase 4 lineup is looking great. So, and hopefully those further the story of where the MCU is going moving forward. And now that Black Widow's here and gone now, all we can say, because we don't really know if she's going to come back, say thank you to Scarlett Johansson. Wish her the best of luck of whatever movie she's going to be in. We're all going to be watching her kick butt in all the other movies she does. But if she ever comes back to the MCU, which is going to happen anyway, it should be a lot of fun. So leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys thought about Black Widow. And did you guys like it? Not like it? Did you guys thought it was okay? Leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys thought. Stay tuned for more, and thank you very much, and have a good day.